This is episode 16 of StoryCast 21. I'm Jane Secker. On November the 26th, 2008, 10 Islamic terrorists sailed from Pakistan into Mumbai, India's largest city with a population of more than 12 million, and began a highly coordinated attack that would go on for 4 days. This is Escape the Taj Mumbai.
I'm Daniela Federici. I'm a photographer and a director. Originally from Melbourne, I'm half Italian, half Australian. I'm separated, so I've got one child. Well, I've been to India many, many times, so I'm very familiar with the crazy, kind of hectic city of Mumbai. My team and I were doing a TV series on the last of the Maharajas, and we arrived there the 26th of November, 2008.
My name is Ashish Joshi. I am a Sky News correspondent. I count Mumbai as almost a second home. It feels like everyone in India at some point in their life must go to this city. It is known as the City of Dreams.
At night time, we were coming in from the airport, and so it was kind of a lot of traffic, a lot of people on the street, and it was a hot, humid night. We were staying at all the Taj properties throughout India. They were one of our sponsors for this TV series. It was for Ovation Television in America and around the world, actually. And the reason why we were going there that night is to meet with the head of the PR, who'd flown in from Delhi to meet and greet us and just sort of send us on our way.
The Taj Hotel is in South Mumbai. It's one of the most famous buildings, not just in Mumbai or in India, but in the world. It's a luxury 5-star hotel which sits right on the Arabian Sea. Incredible Victorian grand facade, stunning building, stunning architecture, instantly recognizable by anyone who is familiar with India.
And when I arrived, it was checking in of all the silver nomads, which is all the couples that do their big retirement trips. So it was a lot of Australians and Brits in their sort of, I'd say, 60s, checking in at reception. It was quite packed, the reception area, because everyone had just arrived.
They quickly dispersed across the city, striking targets right throughout Mumbai, including a popular tourist cafe, hospitals, cinema, marketplaces.
Nobody, including Daniela, could have known that already. A group of 10 men, terrorists from a Pakistani-based militant group called Lashkar-e-Toiba, were rampaging through the city.
Also in their gun sights, the city's Chhatrapati Shivaji railway terminus.
They were armed with guns and explosives and had just attacked one of the city's main train stations and a cafe very close to the hotel itself. Now, they were bound for the Taj. Their aim was to kill as many people as possible.
So I sent the camera gear up with the bellman and paid him some cash, and then I had to fill out a form because I had the room. So I gave the Indian girl at reception my Australian passport, and I said, look, I don't have time to fill out the form now. I'm running really late for a meeting. And she said, oh yes, the meeting's been changed from the restaurant up to the bar. As we were standing there, you could hear sort of the sound of fireworks in the distance. And I just said to my cameraman, I said, that's really peculiar. You know, it's November. It's not wedding season. So it's strange to have fireworks in India at that time. And as we sort of moved away from the reception and went towards the staircase to go up to the bar on the first floor, they came into the reception area.
We know the gunman entered the Taj Hotel just after 9 o'clock in the evening.
People were falling to the floor, people were screaming, people were hiding. And we kind of ran up the stairs. And from that point, our sort of adrenaline kicked in. We ran up through to the right into the bar. All my crew were waiting, sitting at a table having a drink. So I said, look, there's someone coming in with guns. We've got to do something. So basically, we just slammed the doors closed and we barricaded it with couches and the furniture. And by the time they came around to where we were, we'd barricaded it quite severely, so they couldn't really get through. and there were bullets flying around the room, but we were able to sort of hide behind furniture in the bar and the columns that were there. And we could hear them killing people outside the door, and they were throwing them in the stairwell.
Very good evening. Let's bring you up to date with the very latest from the city of terror, Mumbai, hit by a wave of terrorist attacks. The focus appears to have been two luxury hotels, the Taj Palace and the Trident Oberoi.
There was a padded kind of wall behind the bar, and we realised it was doors, so we sort of pried it open. Going from the bar into the second ballroom was all of about 20 minutes. As soon as they stopped shooting us through the doors, we just jumped up and ran across. In the next room was a small ballroom which had an Indian wedding going on, and they had no idea what was going on because the music was so loud. So they were dancing. We sort of grabbed them and said, hey guys, this is serious. So we all went from that room into a large corner ballroom, and as we went through, we closed the doors behind us and barricaded with the furniture in the room. So they couldn't really get in. And there was another door going onto the stairwell, the staircase, and we barricaded that. Then we took the ice buckets from the wedding and tried to break them through the windows, because the windows were all locked and double glazed. And because they were double glazed, we didn't know at the time, but it's really about a small point of impact, and we were using these big ice buckets with the boys were trying to smash through. All their might wasn't breaking through these windows. So basically we were stranded in that room.
Mumbai city is in lockdown. The tension turns whispers into rumours. How many more terrorists are hiding in India's teeming millions? Is a second wave... I arrived on the 27th of November 2008, and that's about 24 hours after the first initial reports of the attack.
Police and the Indian Navy have searched a ship, the MV Alpha, which sailed to Mumbai from the Pakistan port city of Karachi. Once it was moored off Mumbai, it's believed the attackers used inflatable dinghies to reach the shore just beside the gateway of India, and that's right next to the Taj Palace Hotel.
The group responsible for the attack is called Lashkar-e-Taiba. Now that means soldiers of the pure. They're a Pakistani-based militant organization who claim to be fighting for the Muslims in Indian-administered Kashmir.
At the main train station, young Asian gunmen caught on camera sprayed waiting commuters with automatic weapons. Many people died on the station's forecourt and platforms. The gunmen reloaded 3 times.
These terrorists landed their boats maybe 5 to 10 minutes away in one of these small fishing villages dotted around the Taj. There were reports coming in of people who'd been shot dead and injured, possibly dozens by this stage.
Throughout the day, gunfire and explosions have crackled around the buildings at the centre of what is basically a battle.
The situation was changing all the time. The widespread attack that had taken place at key targets across the city had now centralised. It was focused on the Taj.
We can see outside that it's chaotic scenes outside. I mean, there's cars everywhere trying to block the entrance of the hotel.
The police response was slow, chaotic, and the police officers who went to the scene weren't very well armed. They had antiquated rifles, and I don't think there was an overarching plan.
The fighting or the shooting is still going on.
We were in the main ballroom trying to get out. Obviously, we couldn't get through these windows. So, on our Blackberries and iPhones, we could sort of track what was going on, and we soon realised that it wasn't just one crazy person, because we didn't know what was going on. It was just some person, revenge of a, romantic revenge or whatever it was. We realised, that there was attacks in the subway or the train station and the Leopold Cafe and the other things. And reading about it, we realised it was an organised terrorist attack.
It became apparent very early on that this was going to be an extremely difficult and complex operation. There were hundreds of people trapped inside. If you can imagine, a huge luxury hotel, story after story, long row after row, room after room. And in each of those rooms, there could have either been terrorists or residents. So mounting any sort of rescue operation, even with a blueprint of the hotel, was going to be extremely difficult.
What was really bizarre was the Indian police didn't call in the special service, the Indian police didn't have guns, and when they did try and go in at the very beginning, they were just massacred by the machine guns. We even downloaded a architectural plan of the building and sent it to the embassies and saying, we're in this room, can someone come with a ladder and just get us out? And of course no one could come because they were shooting off the top of the building, and they were, no one could get in or out of the building, from where we were at least, because we were 30 feet up on the ballroom level. And then they worked out there were 5 people in the building.
The terrorists had knocked out the electricity. We could hear explosions, grenades going off inside the hotel. There were fires, and it was pitch black and thick, acrid smoke bellowing from the hotel.
Chaos and confusion for a second night as this Mumbai terror attack continues.
Lashkar-e-Toiba would have known that if you attack Mumbai, you will get headlines. And to have a running siege for 4 or 5 days with no other news being reported around the world, that's exactly the sort of attention this terrorist group craves.
And no one was coming to get us. It was really quite bizarre. All the Indians was calling friends. And I said, look, guys, you've got to just text. We don't want them to know we're here and how many are here and what's going on. I said, please just go to text. Everyone just went silent. But we could hear people being killed, fleeing for their lives, and then, being shot, and the bodies were being thrown over the stairwell and they were piling up down below. We got all that from all the iPhones and stuff like that. And apparently, they were calling rooms and saying it's safe to go out, and they were killing people as they came out. So we got all the news reports, but we also, got the reports that the fire was sort of wrapping around the building.
India has one of the biggest 24-hour television news networks in the world. There were hundreds and hundreds of TV satellite trucks all along the front of the hotel. And these reporters, who were all in their stand-up positions reporting on what was happening behind them, they were being fired on as well. So every so often you'd hear a shot, everyone would dive for cover. The police were really very worried about the rolling news coverage, because everything that was happening was being transmitted live. And it was pretty obvious at the time that whoever was talking to these terrorists inside and guiding them could see what was happening. People were absolutely petrified. They were in this hotel waiting for the security services to come and get them. But if you're in that position, what do? Do you take a chance? Do you make a dash for safety? Do you run through the hotel? There's glass on the floor. There's smoke. It's pitch black. You can hear the explosions. You don't know who the terrorists are. And on top of all of this, you are absolutely terrified. It's unimaginable horror.
About halfway through, when it was all going off and the fire was everywhere, the whole building kind of moved a bit because they were trying to wire the tower and explode the tower or the dome. And I noticed the chandelier in that room was clinking with all the vibrations in the building. And I said to some of my guys, let's move the Indian stuff, because they were lying on the floor sleeping through it all, because the reality is they weren't really that worried because they were after the Westerners. So we said to the guys, come on, get up, we've got to move you. And they were really pissed off, obviously. But literally within a minute or two, the big dome exploded, or there was an explosion, and the whole chandelier came crashing down.
Alex, can you update us? We've heard some noise.
Yeah, they seem to be firing grenades down the side of the street, not actually that seemed to be returning gunfire then.
We thought someone would come through the windows and save us. We really thought that would happen. But then after 2 days and the fires above us and smoke coming, we realised no one was coming for us. So that was it.
Well, there was a lot of smoke around the front arch, but
it was just one of those waiting games. My crew were a lot of Australians. They were making jokes just to try and make light of the situation. But it was looking pretty bleak, and it got to a point where the smoke was completely over us and coming down, and we were probably going to die of smoke asphyxiation before we died of burning from the fire. The smoke was around us, you know, and I had to text my ex-husband and my son, who was 2.5 then, you know, saying that basically, Mummy's not going to make it home. I'm sorry, I love you guys, but I'm not going to make it.
Again, it's aimed all at the second floor.
You know, the idea that your child wouldn't have a parent, and that could have been it, you know?
Yeah, but doesn't seem to be particularly directed inside the rooms.
We all hugged each other and laid down to die, holding hands in a circle, my group. And literally a couple of minutes later, they'd thrown a grenade off the ceiling to hit someone below, and it ricocheted or something happened. But anyway, 2 of the windows smashed. So that we all jumped up, and the smoke started to clear, and we basically just smashed through the windows and took the long curtains that are from the 16 or 18-foot curtains for the ballroom floor, tied them together in nautical knots, because a lot of us are sailors, and got half the people down that way.
We're seeing some pictures now from Mumbai of people coming down some steps, civilians, clearly foreigners as well, being escorted down some steps
By the time we got half the wedding and people down, they brought a ladder over, and then some of us went down at the end.
And within the past few minutes, a truckload of another 20 soldiers have arrived just in the last few minutes. Not quite sure.
The siege was eventually broken by a group of extremely brave commandos, highly skilled specialists who had been flown in from Delhi.
The evidence as related to the militants is the language that has been intercepted by...
These were the Black Hat commandos, equivalent to the SAS.
Protests have replaced gunfire and grenades on the streets of Mumbai today. The city's residents, previously paralysed by fear, blame their government for lapses in security that allowed a gang of militants to terrorise and kill.
We managed to leave 2 days later. I live in New York, but I had a house in Australia, in Sydney and Bondi Beach, and I just didn't really want to travel anywhere.
And now the tales of the survivors are being told, and as these tales are told, people will listen, and people will be incredulous.
8 months in Australia, a very strange thing happened where my agent from New York said, look, there's an ad agency called Saks Agency that do all the high-end luxury hotels, and they just got their Taj campaign relaunch, to do that. And they'd love you to do it. And I said to my agent, did they know I was a hostage? Did they know I was there? And my agent said, no. And I said, wow, what a strange thing. Out of every photographer on the planet, they choose me. And going back a few days before we went back, I must say I started to have panic attacks. So I did a decompression thing where I had to learn how to take the nastiest moments of the night in full Technicolor. You turn it black and white. You shrink it down and you put it in an imaginary box and you close the lid and you put it away in a drawer. And that kind of stops you triggering panic attacks that come from post-traumatic stress. So I took the entire crew that was suffering and that were there from that. There was one scene that we wrote where it was in the stairwell, which is the horrific, where they were piling up the bodies. To see the staff celebrating the staircase with balloons and streamers and doing a hurrah, we photographed this scenario of them on the stairs, and it was quite beautiful. A lot of the trauma and the emotional damage kind of was cleared through that sort of cathartic moment of going back and photographing the campaign and feeling safe in those places again. And I think the whole situation with the terrorists, they were young boys. They were being paged to kill people. They were arguing. They didn't often want to shoot people. But I still, to this day, don't blame the kids holding the guns. I blame the people behind them.
Over the 4 days, from November the 26th to November the 29th, 2008, at least 175 people, including 9 terrorists, died in the Mumbai attacks. It was subsequently discovered that the attack was directed remotely from Pakistan. For more on this podcast, log on to skynews.com/StoryCast21. Escape the Taj Mumbai was recorded by Tom Gillespie. Writing, production and sound design was by Rob Mulhern. StoryCast 21 will return in November 2021 with its final instalment of episodes.